Welcome to the Science of Hockey, the podcast where we break down the science behind ice hockey. I'm the analyst, your host, and every week we explore the data, research, and evidence that shape how we play, train, and understand the game of hockey. From biomechanics to performance psychology, we take you beyond the rink and into the research lab, giving you insights that go beyond hearsay and into what really makes the difference on the ice. Whether you're a player, a coach, a parent, or just someone passionate about the sport, we're here to bring you scientifically backed information in a language that's friendly and easy to understand. So grab your skates and let's dive into the science of hockey. Welcome to the Science of Hockey. I'm your host, the analyst, and today we're delving into the physics of speed and strength on the ice. We'll explore how maximum strength and explosive power off the ice translate into sprint speed and performance during a game. With data from youth players to elite professionals, research reveals the critical role of strength training and vertical jump performance in bridging the gap between junior and pro hockey. Whether you're a coach refining your training regimen or an athlete aiming to boost your game, this episode has the insights to help you take your performance to the next level. Strap on your skates and let's get started.
All right, so have you ever wondered about that link between strength training off the ice and how fast a hockey player can be when they're actually playing?
It's a great question, and one we're going to dive into today.
We've got some research here that looks at just that. It focuses on elite youth and pro players over in Switzerland.
Yeah, it's a cool study because they're really connecting how strong a player is to how well they perform on the ice.
Okay, so how did they actually go about measuring this? One thing that really jumped out at me when I was reading this was how they actually set up this study.
Well, they had a pretty big group of players, 91 to be exact.
Okay.
And they had a good mix of ages too, like under 16,
Wow.
15, 21, and even pros from the top leagues in Switzerland.
That's a pretty good range from like just starting out to the big leagues.
Yeah, exactly.
So what kind of tests did they put these players through?
So for strength, they use something called an isometric trap bar pull.
Okay.
So basically, the player holds a heavy bar completely still, and it measures their maximum force, so like how much they can push or pull in a static position.
So it's not about like how many reps you can do, it's that one like burst of power.
Exactly, yeah, that raw strength.
Gotcha.
Then they also had the players do different types of jumps
Okay.
to test explosive power.
So like how quickly?
Yeah, like squat jumps, counter movement jumps, even counter movement jumps with extra weight added.
So it's like mimicking like the starting and stopping
Exactly, those quick bursts.
stuff on the ice. Very cool. Okay.
And then
Yeah.
to really make it specific to hockey,
Yeah.
they timed the players sprinting on the ice.
Oh, okay.
Full gear and everything.
Nice.
15 and 30-meter sprints.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking actual hockey speed.
Yeah, that's really neat.
And they did all these tests in the second week of preseason, so everybody was at the same level.
Makes sense. So it was fair. It wasn't like some guys were
Yeah, controlled for all that extra.
the mid-season
Right.
form. Okay, so the big question, did strength actually translate to faster skating?
Well, what they found was that there was a strong correlation
Oh, okay.
between how strong the players were and how fast they could skate.
So like stronger guys were generally faster on the ice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And this correlation was even stronger than in some past studies.
Interesting.
They actually used something called a correlation coefficient to measure this relationship.
Okay.
And that ranged from like 0.34 to 0.63, which basically means there's a pretty strong link.
Wow. So if you want to be faster, it sounds like hitting the gym is a good idea.
Yeah, for sure.
But did they look at different types of strength? Like, was there one that stood out more than others?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
They actually found that maximum strength, that single burst of power, was the best predictor, especially in those longer sprints, like the 30-meter one.
Okay. That makes sense. Because if you're trying to, like, carry the puck up the ice, you need that power to really get going and maintain that speed.
It's all about what we call velocity specificity.
Oh, okay.
At higher speeds, you have less contact time on the ice,
Oh, yeah.
So having that maximum strength helps you generate more force in that shorter amount of time.
Interesting. So it's like having a bigger engine in your car. It can help you maintain those higher speeds.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, we've been focusing on elite players, but what about like younger guys? Were there any differences between the age groups in the study?
Yeah, there were some pretty significant differences.
Okay.
Obviously, the pros were faster and stronger overall.
Right. Makes it.
But the biggest difference they saw was between the youngest group, the under 16s, and the pros.
Oh, wow. So there's a big jump, like, as
Yeah.
they get older and...
Yeah, experience and training really make a difference.
Right. So playing hockey itself kind of helps.
Absolutely, yeah. The more you play, the more your body adapts to those demands.
Right.
Of course, you also have to remember that at the pro level, there's a bit of a selection bias. The guys who are naturally strong and fast are more likely to make it that far.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it really highlights how important these qualities are.
Yeah, if you want to play at the top level.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like strength training is important, experience matters, but were there any caveats to this study? Anything the researchers pointed out that we should be aware of?
Yeah, they did mention a couple of limitations.
Okay.
For example, they didn't specifically account for biological age, especially in that under 16 group.
Right, because some kids might be more physically mature than others at that age.
Exactly, and that could skew the results a bit.
Yeah.
And they also mentioned that there could be differences between players depending on their position.
Right, a defenseman
Yeah, defenseman.
might train differently than a forward or whatever.
Sure.
So good to keep in mind.
It's a reminder that research is always ongoing.
Right.
And this study adds to our understanding of how strength training impacts speed on the ice.
Huh.
And it highlights how important consistent training and just playing experience are.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't just hit the gym a few times and expect to be like an NHL pro.
No, it takes time and dedication.
Okay, so we've established that strength and speed are linked and how it changes with experience, but let's get practical here. What kind of strength training exercises would actually be most effective for a hockey player looking to improve their speed?
Well, we know that the study emphasized that isometric trap bar pull, so exercises that focus on generating maximum force, should be a priority.
Okay, so not just doing a ton of reps with light weights.
Exactly. It's about building that raw strength.
Gotcha.
Think about those explosive movements in hockey.
Yeah, those starts and stops and...
Yeah, you need to be able to generate force quickly and efficiently.
Right.
So exercises like squats, deadlifts, those trap bar pulls we talked about, those are all good starting points.
Okay, those are all compound movements, right?
Yes, exactly.
They work multiple muscle groups at the same time. Okay, so it's not just bicep curls.
No, it's about working those big muscle groups that are involved in skating.
So squats, they're mimicking that skating motion.
Yeah, exactly. You're working your quads, hamstrings, glutes, all those important muscles.
And deadlifts are good for your back and stuff.
Yeah, your posterior chain, your back, glutes, hamstrings, all important for explosive movements.
Gotcha. What about core strength? Is that important too?
Absolutely. Your core is like your foundation.
Okay.
It helps stabilize your body and transfer power efficiently.
So planks and stuff.
Yeah, planks, Russian twists, medicine ball throws, those are all good exercises for your core.
Okay, so we've got the strength training part down. But what about that explosiveness we were talking about earlier?
Right, that's where plyometrics comes in.
Okay.
Things like box jumps, jump squats, even medicine ball slams.
So it's training your muscles to react quickly.
Yeah, exactly. It's about developing that explosive power that you need to, outmaneuver your opponents on the ice.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
And the great thing about plyometrics is that it translates really well to those specific movements in hockey.
So it's not just random exercises, it's stuff that'll actually help you on the ice.
Exactly.
So it's giving those players the tools they need to be successful.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got strength training, plyometrics, but let's be real here.
Yeah.
Not every player has access to a fancy strength coach and a gym and all that stuff.
That's true.
So what advice would you give to players who are trying to improve their strength and speed on their own, at home or whatever?
Well, the key is to start with the basics.
Okay.
Master those fundamental movements before moving on to more complex exercises.
Gotcha.
Body weight exercises are a great place to start.
So push-ups, squats, lunges.
Exactly. You can do those anywhere. No equipment needed.
Nice.
And as you get stronger, you can start adding resistance with bands, dumbbells, or even just getting creative with adding weight to those body weight exercises.
Yeah, putting a backpack on for squats or something.
Yeah, exactly. Get creative.
Okay, so start simple, gradually add more weight or resistance, and be consistent, right?
Absolutely. Consistency is key.
Okay.
It's better to train regularly with a good program than to overdo it and risk getting injured.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to burn yourself out.
Exactly.
So we've got the strength training, the plyometrics, but what about rest and recovery?
Oh, that's super important.
Yeah.
It's just as crucial as the training itself.
Okay.
You got to give your body time to repair and rebuild those muscles.
So it's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Okay.
And make sure you're using proper form.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
It's better to lift lighter with good form than to go too heavy and risk injury.
Yeah, you don't want to get hurt.
And listen to your body. If you're feeling sore or tired, take a rest day.
Makes sense. So strength training, plyometrics, rest and recovery, all working together. That's a good recipe for success.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach.
Okay, now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one thing you mentioned earlier, the importance of regular performance testing.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Why is that so crucial for hockey players?
Well, it lets you track your progress, see how far you've come, and identify areas where you might need to improve.
Oh, okay.
It's like having a roadmap to guide your training.
Makes sense.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. Simple things like timed sprints, vertical jumps, even body weight strength assessments can give you valuable insights.
So you can see if your training is actually paying off.
Exactly. It's about using data to make informed decisions about your training.
Okay, so whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, incorporating regular testing seems like a smart move.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got strength training, plyometrics, rest and recovery, performance testing, all key ingredients for success on the ice. Now, before we move on, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
We've talked about how strength training can boost speed, different types of exercises, but here's a question. Could there be a point of diminishing returns when it comes to strength training for hockey players?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah, like, could there be a point where gaining too much muscle mass might actually slow you down on the ice?
It's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, because hockey's not just about brute force, right?
Right.
You need agility and finesse, too.
Exactly. It's a balancing act.
Okay, so we'll dive into that more in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
So stay tuned.
Yeah. Could too much muscle be a bad thing for hockey players?
Right, because hockey isn't just about being, like, the strongest guy on the ice.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between power and agility.
Yeah, you don't want to be like a tank trying to make quick turns.
That's a perfect analogy. You need to be strong, but you also need to be able to move quickly and change direction easily.
So it's not just about hitting the weights hard. It's about working with someone who understands the demands of the sport.
Exactly. A good strength and conditioning coach will create a program that takes all of that into account.
So that means including other types of training too, right?
Absolutely. Things like plyometrics for explosiveness, flexibility work, even things like yoga or Pilates to improve mobility.
So it's really about developing a well-rounded athlete.
Exactly. You want someone who's not just strong, but also flexible, agile, and able to move efficiently on the ice.
This research we've been talking about is really fascinating, but it's just one piece of the puzzle, right?
Exactly. There's always more to learn and explore when it comes to sports science.
Yeah, that's what makes it so interesting.
And for those of you listening, it's important to remember that you shouldn't just blindly copy what others are doing. You need to understand the principles behind the training and apply them in a way that makes sense for you.
It's about being a student of the game, always learning and growing.
Well said.
Now, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier. The differences in performance between the age groups.
Right, the younger players versus the pros.
Yeah, what can we learn from that?
I think it really highlights the importance of experience and consistent training. Those pro players didn't just magically become elite athletes overnight. It took years of dedication and hard work.
So it's like building a house. You got to start with a strong foundation.
Exactly. And for young players who dream of making it to the pros, this study shows how crucial it is to put in the work early on.
Yeah, those early years are all about developing those fundamental skills and building that strength and speed.
And as you move up the ranks and face tougher competition, those qualities become even more important.
So it's not just about physical development either, right?
Right. You also need to develop mental toughness, that ability to push through challenges and never give up.
It's about having that passion for the game that drives you to keep improving.
Exactly.
Okay, we've talked a lot about strength training and its impact on speed. We've covered different types of exercises, the importance of a well-rounded approach. But there's another piece of the puzzle we haven't really touched on. Nutrition.
Oh yeah, nutrition is super important. You can't out-train a bad diet.
So how does nutrition play into all of this?
Well, think of your body like a high-performance machine. Food is the fuel that keeps it running.
So if you're not putting in the right fuel, you're not going to get the best performance.
Exactly. And it's not just about the quantity of food, it's also about the quality.
So we're talking about eating nutrient-rich foods that provide the building blocks for recovery and growth.
Exactly. Things like lean protein, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, plenty of fruits and vegetables.
So protein helps build and repair muscles, carbs provide energy, and healthy fats support overall health.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance and making sure your diet is aligned with your training goals.
And it's not just what you eat, it's also about when you eat, right?
Right. Timing your meals and snacks around your workouts can help optimize your energy levels and recovery.
Makes sense. So we've got strength training, plyometrics, rest and recovery, nutrition, it's all connected.
Absolutely. It's a holistic approach to athletic development.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the science behind strength and speed to practical tips and nutritional considerations.
It's been a great discussion.
It has. Is there anything else you think our listeners should keep in mind as they work on improving their hockey performance?
I think one of the most important things to remember is that everyone is different. What works for one player might not work for another.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. You need to listen to your body, pay attention to how you feel, and adjust your training accordingly.
So don't be afraid to experiment and find what works best for you.
Exactly. There's no single right way to train or eat. There are many different approaches out there. So find what you enjoy and what helps you perform at your best.
That's great advice. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
We've talked about strength training, plyometrics, nutrition, but what about sleep? How does that factor into all of this? Yeah, sleep, it's something we all need.
It is. And for athletes, it's especially important.
Okay, so we know sleep is important for our overall health and stuff, but how does it actually affect athletic performance? Especially in a high-intensity sport like hockey.
Well, think about it this way. When you're training, you're putting your body under a lot of stress.
Right, breaking down those muscles and stuff.
Exactly. And sleep is when your body recovers and repairs itself from that stress.
Oh, okay, so if you're not sleeping enough...
You're not giving your body a chance to fully recover.
Gotcha.
And that means you won't see the results you're looking for from your training.
So it can actually hold you back, even if you're doing everything else right.
Exactly. When you sleep, your body releases growth hormone,
Okay.
which is essential for muscle growth and repair.
Right, so if you're not sleeping enough, you're not getting enough of that growth hormone.
Exactly. And you're also missing out on other benefits of sleep, like regulating your metabolism and energy levels.
Makes sense. So skimping on sleep could actually make you feel more tired and sluggish during your workouts?
Absolutely. And that's not all. Lack of sleep can also lead to things like slower reaction times,
Oh, wow.
poor decision-making,
That's not good.
and even an increased risk of injury.
Yeah, you definitely don't want that, especially in a sport like hockey where things happen so fast.
Exactly. You need to be alert and focused to avoid getting hurt and to perform at your best.
So how much sleep should hockey players be aiming for?
Most experts recommend between 7 and 9 hours of quality sleep per night.
Okay, so it's not just about the number of hours, but also the quality of that sleep.
Exactly. You want to make sure you're getting deep, restful sleep so your body can fully recover.
So what are some tips for getting better sleep?
Well, having a consistent sleep routine is really important.
Okay, so like going to bed and waking up around the same time every day.
Exactly. And make sure your bedroom is dark, cool, and quiet.
Yeah, like a cave.
Exactly. And avoid things like caffeine and alcohol before bed.
Right, because those can mess with your sleep.
They can.
So it's like treating sleep as an essential part of your training. Exactly. It's just as important as your workouts and your nutrition.
So we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
The science behind strength training, how it affects speed on the ice,
Mm-hmm.
practical training tips, nutrition, and even the importance of sleep.
It's all connected.
It is. And I think the main takeaway here is that it's not just about one thing.
Exactly. It's about a holistic approach to training.
Yeah, taking care of your body, both on and off the ice.
And remember, everyone is different. What works for one player might not work for another.
So it's about finding what works best for you.
Exactly. Listen to your body, experiment with different approaches, and don't be afraid to ask for guidance from a qualified coach or trainer.
That's great advice. And I think that's a great place to wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We've learned so much about the science of strength and speed in hockey.
It's been a great discussion.
It has. And for all of you listening out there, remember, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Use what you've learned today to take your training to the next level.
And keep chasing those hockey dreams. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for tuning in to the Science of Hockey. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share it with your friends, teammates, or anyone who loves hockey as much as you do. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment to let us know what you liked, what you'd like to hear next, or any questions you have. Your feedback helps us make the show even better. Until next time, keep your skates sharp, your mind open, and keep chasing the science behind the game.